So let's move to Q&A session. So I will check questions in the chat, but first I'm going to ask you a few questions I prepared before we start the webinar. Just I wanna mention, and I wanna stress out that today we do have today's speakers are from different industries. We've got government, we've got university, we've got private academy, we've got a company that is supplying hardware basically for universities. We've got online education, and we've got services and hardware solutions that is helping schools in remote areas. So that's pretty cool, and basically we are covering lots of divisions and directions in the education industry in general. So my first question about space and how space is basically helping and fostering the STEAM education programs, how space companies can facilitate all this, and what's the role of those companies in pushing STEAM education programs. And this, to be frank, I edited this question before publishing it, so it was educational progress in remote areas, but I deleted because I want to know more about other areas as well, not only in remote. So please, let's discuss about it. Who's going to start? Francois.
I will go. You're basically saying, how does the satellites promote STEM education? Is that right?
It's not all about satellites. It's about space. In general, right? So basically, you are teaching. Let's take Danielle's example, right? So they're developing kits that are used to in educational programs, right? And how those kids inspiring future leaders in different domains. Actually, we started discussing, but I want to deep dive into it.
Yeah. So I think that touches on what I spoke about. It's that excitement raiser, and when it's real. That's the case where I stood by Benjamin in Ghana, where they are building satellite ground stations, and that is real. It's easy. You can do it without moving the earth in terms of money. There was the case, I saw somebody ask a question about, in their case, why are they using Arduino for these things? Simply because it's cheap, but you can now expose kids to an environment. So once again, I think somebody once said, you sell the sizzle, not the steak. And people hear the steak, they smell the steak, and they come closer. And this is it, where this is really exciting. And I can see how this impacts, and I've seen it. If you draw in rural communities, get things like that. The kids come and suddenly they want to know, but what is this all about? That opens the door to other things. I think that was what I wanted to say. They may in the end up to be a mathematician, but the thought is like, wow, this is something real. I think and this is applicable whether in Eastern Europe, in America, in Indonesia, it doesn't matter. There's always that key that unlocks it. And I think that's the role here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Danielle, do you have something? Sorry.
Sorry, Alex. Daniela, if you did have something to add, I'm happy for you to jump in.
Go ahead, and then I can. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. I think from a slightly different perspective, space does impact a lot of very important issues globally. Let's talk climate. Climate is obviously a major challenge that we are all facing. Without space, we do not appreciate really how much of a challenge it is. So I think from an educational perspective, without necessarily realizing the benefits or sort of where a lot of this information is coming from, space data can actually provide the next generation with more awareness into climate change, into the solutions that are being implemented to counteract climate change and also just the value of space altogether. So a slightly different take. I think space technologies is quite a broad topic, but looking at it from a downstream perspective, I think it does unlock more deep thought into really the value of space beyond just space technologies.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniela.
Yeah, I would just maybe invite the people to watch a short video on YouTube. It's by German Space Agency, and it's called "What Would a Day Without Space Look Like?" And it's really, really sobering, giving like a very good perspective on how the space technologies affect our everyday life. And for me, just thinking about space technology and just space overall, I think it should be like basic knowledge. It should be in all the classrooms for all ages, no matter like how you are going to approach it. Obviously, there are regions with less resources and whatnot, and I really appreciated these solutions. For example, that Michelle presented today. It was really, really cool, just to give people something tangible, something to start with, to spark the passion and to create something for the future. As I don't think there is any other industry comparable to what space is doing for our everyday lives. And I would just say, like, maybe as a privileged person, you know, you have your phone, you have your TV, you have your weather forecast, you have your navigation, you order food and cab and everything. It's just there. It's there wherever you look, the satellites and the space technology. Further on, like looking into the future, just using the resources that are in space. And overall, like for me, this is just we need to put every possible resource into this. I would just have this space in the kindergarten and all the way up, you know, to the universities, just educating people, because from my experience, I would just say that as I'm working specifically with satellites, everyone is like, okay, so these satellites, we don't really need it. And it's really, really sobering when you just think about the bigger picture and the bigger impact of this. So that's why I just mentioned this video, just to maybe look it up and to gain this broader perspective on this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Michelle.
I just want, Michelle.
You're muted, Michelle, you're muted.
Very sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay, indeed. Yeah, thank you, Daniela, because I think you're right. The point is that, okay, space technology is really solving a real problem. And this is something that people must understand, that in fact here, the solution we are proposing is really for education of rural schools and very poor countries that cannot afford teachers, and then we need to have a high quality teacher, and this is exactly what we provide with the technology. And this is just an example, and of course with this you can teach anything. It can be mathematics, can be engineering, but can be also very basic things like English, grammar, or whatever. But in order to get the patient, I think that people have to understand that it's not only purely mathematics or physics, it's also a real problem, day-to-day problems that satellite technology can solve. And I think this is very important to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, Francois, please.
I just want to add on the previous ones. The topic I missed, and this is what Michelle is referring to, is a technology spin-off. Now, I saw this on the satellite program I was working on. The Western Cape of South Africa, around Cape Town, today has a well-established small satellite industry going there. And what happened is that it stopped the brain drain, one of the biggest challenges in Africa. Now, your slide said Africa in the beginning, but one of Africa's biggest problems, even India, is the brain drain. But and my point is that if somebody from a government is listening today, and they say, but why should I invest in space. I hear all the arguments you're saying here, but I have another reason saying that if you invest in space, you can start a local tech industry in your country, and that stops the brain drain. And that has a rollover effect because those people, as spin-off industries that start from there, as happened around Cape Town in the Western Cape. So this is, people shouldn't just say, but space is about space. Space is about the economic ecosystem that you can establish, which in many cases you cannot do in any other way. And the amount of money you need to establish it is fairly small in terms of the return you can get. That's an assumption.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's move to our second question. It's basically how the collaborations between space companies and education institution drive innovation in education process, not only curricula or teaching methods, but education process in general. And if you don't mind, I can start with Abdul Rahman. Please, maybe you can start with this.
Yes, yes. I think this is a very important question. The collaboration between universities and companies is really important. I know the companies is worried about the money, about the cost, about everything, all money. But for the university, for the institutes, and for the educational institution, they want to teach their students with the latest technology that we have for space. And the companies, because they have experience, they have their problems, they can provide the educational institutes or universities what the lack of or the problem they're facing in the space technology, and how this can be solved. Because this is very important for the companies. Sometimes they cannot solve some of the problem that they have. They move it to the universities, for example, or to institutes who have brilliant students that can work on solving problems and issues. And at the end, they will learn how they solve these problems. And the companies, at the end, they will get the solutions that it's cost a lot of money for them because of this issues. So they need a link between how the work done for the companies, for the small satellites companies, for example, subsystems, because I'm sure all the companies, or most of the companies, they can provide the university with types of problems that need to be solved. And this is I think this is the good thing that for the students is to give them hard problems and ask them to solve it, because this is the university, this is the institute, and this is the research. We need to solve all the issues, all the problems that we cost a lot of money for the companies and for the private sector by doing research and tests and using the infrastructure that we have in universities, the labs, and we can also do a meeting between the companies and the students and universities to discuss the progress, how we move from level 1 to level 2, for example. And because I think both the companies need students and brilliant students and institutes that are focusing in solving problems, and the universities and students need the companies and their experience, because it will help them a lot to know what the problems they are facing, because this is the chemistry between these two very important things. So I think for this question, the collaboration we need to have it between these two, and I think the link to for the information between them, it's a very important for both.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask same question to Amar, because you do have your private academy. How you're cooperating with the government? I'm not speaking about Saudi government, as I know you're like based in Saudi now, but in general, CERCO and Space Academy in Europe and UK and so on.
So, I mean, Thanks, Alex, for the question. I mean, the academy is actually built. I mean, from a government perspective, I'll address that in a minute. But the academy is also built in cooperation with academic institutions globally. So we do partner with academic institutions to bring in their academic rigor with our more operational and practical experience to blend the two into something that is quite comprehensive for the students. We do work to deliver, and we are currently setting up something in the Middle East around this to deliver this for students under sort of government programs in the Middle East. And we also leverage a lot of our government contracts that we have. I mean, we are a government service provider, so we provide services direct to government, such as European Commission, European Space Agency, and others. So we leverage that experience and the knowledge that we have built there to inform the types of programs that we deliver under the Space Academy. Just going back to sort of what Abdul Rahman said, I think it's important that the sort of collaboration between industry and academia help bridge the gap between industry and academia. What we see is actually that for students coming out of universities or after studying a degree, there's still a gap in knowledge and before sort of in terms of how to apply that in an industrial context. So it's important that industry is there to help bridge that gap. Also potentially offer opportunities for students to participate directly in industry initiatives like internships, graduate programs, and so on. So that collaboration is very important to ensure that as industry, we are getting the right skills from universities and the right types of profiles to support the programs that we are implementing across the space sector. So yeah, that's probably just a couple of points around that, Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Who wanna? Yeah, Abdullah.
Yes, actually, I want to add on that. I mean, thank you, Mr. Abdurrahman and Ammar. I mean, every vision for space, for example, I'm talking about Saudi since I'm a Saudi. We have a space vision, and to achieve that vision, you need to have your resources. As for space is a very emerging, sector. The most important resources is the human factor. So this is actually what I've noticed here in Saudi, that to achieve that vision, we need to invest in the human resources. So we need to develop the education, and this is what I've seen and the SSA and CSD, or the regulators of space industry in Saudi Arabia, that actually supports the institutes and universities by opening a new department, supporting the existing departments, bringing experts, deliver lectures, workshops, and so on, to actually achieve a vision that they want to establish at 2030 or the years beyond. So it's a link, it's like a perfect ecosystem between the governments, institutes, and companies to actually work in a complete environment to achieve a vision for space. So I totally agree that, to actually increase your productivity or application of space, you need to actually invest in the human factor or the educational level. And that can be done only by bridging, the institutes and the companies and the governmental entities, to achieve one goal.
Yeah, thank you so much. My question to Daniela. So you guys are developing kits basically to universities, right? From your opinion, what you achieved there? What was the outcome? And again, in your opinion, or like if you have some things to present or to tell us, how you guys influenced on curricula itself? Was it somehow changed during the project, please?
So I would have to say that we have many ongoing activities not only based on these kits. These kits are actually fantastic tool for hands-on studying, because I am very sure that many of people would agree with me that theory and just theory in schools is just very, very boring, especially if you're to do something so exciting as space. And when we are talking about curriculum, we actually are very lucky here in the Czech Republic to be in contact directly with universities that are asking us about specific input for the curricula in terms of what should they focus on, what are the skills required on the market, as in when their alumni will be looking for a new job when they graduate, what are the skills that will be needed. So we are definitely trying to help in this perspective. We actually even have our employees that do teach on several universities, which I think brings another great perspective directly from the private sector to the school grounds, where the young generation can get a better perspective outside just the books, to gain some hands-on experience before entering the market. So we are definitely seeing the most impact, and we already are hiring employees that are graduates from these schools that have been listening to our input, that are trying to follow the market trends, and they are trying to focus on the future.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I basically do have same question to Michelle. Are you guys working with universities? Do you have any kind of cooperations with any universities, basically?
No, not really. In fact, now we are just trying to collaborate with government in order to have support of Ministry of Educations, because the system we develop are mainly for them, in order to help them to do what they have to do. It's provide and to support education to the largest possible population. Then not only university, but also basic schools, secondary schools, but also, of course, our solution can be used also for university. But basically now we are in discussion with government, mainly in Africa, in order to demonstrate how our solution can solve their problem.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Francois, you want to add something here? We don't hear you. You're muted.
I got it. Yeah,
Okay.
I think the what they've done in the Czech Republic, I really like because I'm in the UAE. I've been here for 8 years, and when I was academic in South Africa, it wasn't much different. But there was the era in South Africa where there was a very close link between industry and academia. And what happened is your academics were doing consulting work in industry. And therefore, effectively, the actions of the industry is directly working back into your curriculum, and they know what they are looking for. Therefore, that will drive it. So in the space systems, they may say, guys, we have a shortage in power systems, satellite power systems, or battery technology. And then guys will take that back to the industry and power that. And I'm not seeing it. And in this country, here in the UAE, I'm also not seeing it. It's not a criticism, it's observation that I'm not seeing that. And to a large degree, it's because the guys in industry and guys in academia, there's no crossover. And that's probably due to consulting, that they're not actually, the academics are exactly that, academics. They're not engineers working in industry. You should have the engineers working in industry. Now, I know that the guys at Advanced Rocket Technologies is trying to address that as well by having guys, teachers that are actually working in industry as well. But I think that's essential. The second one I just want to touch on, the guys have said that, but from a slightly different angle. I do a lot of teaching in industry. Teach GNC and systems courses and so on. But if I teach abstract systems like a Kalman filter, signal processing, image processing, then it's just the concept. But if I can show the guy or the girl, there's a board, there's a system, this is what it does. And then they say, how does it work? And then I start telling them, and then the image processing might drop out of there. Oh, there's image processing inside. But there's first the thing that, oh, wow, that's what it does. And then there's the motivation to go and do the nasty, difficult work behind the scene. And I think these things that you guys are presenting, that's the motivator. If we say impact on education, is that suddenly the guy understands why he's doing it, what he's doing it. And otherwise, it's just boring work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's move to our third question. Challenges in implementing SpaceTech in education, and how can they be addressed? What are the main challenges here? Who's ready?
I guess it's probably getting access to a knowledge base, to a people-based knowledge base, because the people, the engineers that knows about these things are sitting in industry. They are, whether they call them unicorns, you don't find them, and you can't put them to industry with the poor salaries of industry. Oh, so academia with the poor salaries of academia.
Mhm.
So to get started, that's probably your challenge: is to where do you get your champion that will run with you? How do you cross over? I guess it is to start an institution, a training institution, as a spin-off from a technology company, and then have a crossover between that and the university. I believe that's the only way to do this, because then you're not pulling your champions out of industry.
Yeah, Michel, please.
Yeah, thank you, Francois, because I think you're totally right. There are very scarce resources and very few people available in order to give and to teach, and it's why. Once again, I think the solutions we have typically with one teacher, we can reach at least 50 schools because the limitation is due simply to the question and answer session at the end, because of course for one teacher to manage more than 50 schools, it's it's a little bit difficult. But when you imagine that in each school you have up to 30 students, then times 50, it's something like 1,500 students, and this is a large audience. And this is the kind of thing that you can use in order to reach also a very remote area. Because, okay, fiber you can have, of course, in rich countries and in main cities, and of course, generally in universities. But if you want to reach also a remote area, then only satellite can do the job. And it's why this kind of solution can be very helpful. You can have a teacher, for example, in the US, teaching to graduate student in the middle of Africa, and this is something that thing can participate to the challenge we have here. Thank you.
Anybody else? What about budgeting, actually? When universities are trying to cooperate with startups, who is paying for those kits, right? Or for those software solutions or hardware solutions? How do you resolve the problem?
I think that's the point where you can go with equivalence. What are the expensive parts? The expensive parts are the high-end sensors, are the environmental testing, these type of things. The concepts you can get outfit. You can buy the kits from one of these companies that's presented. You can buy a kit, and it's based on commercially available. It's probably fairly cheap. But it is the facilities. I think it's the facilities and the people that's usually the major expense. And if you have a facility already, you can double your person in terms of supporting for the academia, then you may address that. And then you don't go for something that's going to be launched. You don't launch, you don't focus on that. You focus on getting the concepts out in a pseudo environment, such as the CANSAT or something like that.
Yeah.
You have to be practical in the sense.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm checking the chat. I don't see any relevant question here. So I'm run out of questions. If somebody from speakers do have questions, please ask, or we can move to the final words.
There is actually in the Q&A section kind of a lot of questions. So
yeah, 5 questions.
Yeah, I do see. Okay, if Daniela, you start. Okay, let me ask you a question. Why you guys are using Arduino platform?
yes, so the Arduino platform, this was actually related to the SchoolSat kit. So obviously our proper satellites are not based on Arduino, but when we are talking about SchoolSat. We are talking about an entry-level platform for students that are trying to get into space. And it is a well-known and well-documented platform with lots of open source libraries, and it is easier to integrate your own electronics and codes. So if we would be talking about complex algorithms that in the chat was mentioned, like quaternions and some other things, these are definitely not the entry level that we were talking about here. Another advantage maybe of Arduino platform is that wiring language is much more easier to understand in comparison with pure C. So if that was a question, I hope that was the answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have one question here. Are there any opportunities for system engineers in the UAE with previous aerospace experience? I think.
Yeah, let them, you can direct them to me. You have my contact details, so they can contact me via you.
Yeah, you can find everyone's LinkedIn on our official page. So, and then you can go directly and ask questions. Okay. How can private sector approach universities to collaborate on research topics?
That should be fairly obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So the other people are all operating in space, and I'm not really. I'm on the side at the moment. So my question would be: I'm busy writing a course on engineering ethics, and the thought would be, how do we handle the situation with space clutter? With SpaceX Starlink going up, what's it, 2,400 satellites? And I know it's a big space up there, but it's seriously getting cluttered at the moment. And now we're putting tin cans and all type of things up there, and CubeSats and all of these. How do we handle that? What's our situation? What is our responsibility in this sense? Anybody wanting to put their foot in it is welcome to answer.
Yeah, maybe I can help a little bit. Yeah, in fact, I think the responsibility is there is no real legislation worldwide, but the trend is the following: is that each country is responsible for the debris that can happen from the industry. And then, of course, if normally, of course, when you launch something in the space, you need to prove that you can send it back in the atmosphere in order to be burned. But if you do not do that, then you have debris, and those debris are on the responsibility of each countries.
Okay.
Francois, I was just going to add that that topic is I think a universal challenge at the moment. It probably warrants either its own webinar or a whole sort of detailed conference just to even think about the challenge. What Michelle mentioned obviously is very relevant. It's a combination of sort of policy regulation from a government standpoint through to technology and operational implementation, and then everything in between. And it really does take a global effort to try and address the problem, or not only try and address the problem, but try and future-proof solutions going forward, so that we don't come into a sort of more of a problematic situation in the future. And whether or not we get that global cooperation is yet to be seen. I think we've seen Starlink equivalents being launched in other countries, which have caused severe debris events very recently. And of course, Starlink is its own mega constellation that's in orbit. So many different ways of going about this, but it's a multifaceted problem that requires a lot of cooperation and consolidation globally.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is that we're sitting with generations like the millennials that are very sensitive of what is right, what is ethical, what is correct. And if we put into an educational system a tool, a method, and technology which we fundamentally know is messing up a lot of other things, then we are not responsible in our actions, because we need to take responsibility for our own actions. For everything. If you're in the defense industry, you take actions for what's happening with the stuff you're building. And that's why I'm saying, if we go into space, we say, guys, how are we going to use this? How are we responsibly going to deploy this? It's not just about whales. It's also about saving space out there. So I know we don't have an answer. I know nobody would answer me, but it's the ethical question, which I think is an important driver also in education.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it's where education is a very big role, is to make all the students interested by space to understand their responsibility, because it's extremely important for the future.
Yeah.
I would not only limit that, Michelle, to students, but just also global communities, including policymakers, because it's a topic that needs education and awareness at a global scale.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay, I understood. 1 second. Yeah, let me stop sharing it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This one. Okay. Yeah, so let's, if no questions, let me check the chat again. Hi, Abdullah. Once again. I have too many screens today, so I need to jump from one to another. Okay, I think we answered all of them. Then let's move to the end. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. It was a big pleasure to have you today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your presentations. Thank you for, I want to thank our attendees. We've got only 15 right now, but okay, in the beginning there were much more. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. And please keep in mind, we're going to have next webinar will be on October 23rd on oil and gas, on agricultural industry, how SpaceTech is helping agricultural industry. I encourage you to register. It was announced a week ago on our LinkedIn group. Thank you once again, and yeah, let's finish it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Abdullah, for
Thank you
organizing.
so much. Thank you so much. See you soon, guys. Thank you so much for your time today.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.